This is the continuation of Luminous by Sokka's First Fangirl on AO3. This is Chapter 17, titled Celebrations. It took 4 days for the preparations to be complete. The first day, Link stayed in his room and tried to sleep, or at least keep his mind empty. But whether he was awake or asleep, he kept seeing the water blight. He kept hearing Mipha's voice. She asked him to live, not just survive, but live. One look at Sidon's worried face had Link crumpling. The next day, he agreed to explore the domain. So, on the second day, Link followed Sidon around. Koda spotted them and called them into her inn, introducing, or reintroducing, Link to her husband, Caden. Finley proudly introduced her pen pal, Sasson, who had arrived that very morning. "He's a traveling merchant," Finley said. "He's been to Death Mountain." Sasson, a Hylian man no more than 20 years old, winced and showed Link and Sidon a large pink burn scar on his arm. "It was not a pleasant experience," he said. "I wouldn't recommend it." Link would have to go to Death Mountain eventually. Va Rudania was around there. In fact, it was the closest divine beast to the domain. He'd have to look into some sort of fire protection. He had more than enough burn scars, thank you. When Sidon showed him to the main general store, attached to the armory, they found the royal secretary venting to the blacksmiths about that reckless bottom feeder. "Are we interrupting something?" Sidon asked, amused. "Your Highness," the secretary gasped, falling into a mortified bow. Oh, what was her name? Link was sure he'd heard Muzu speaking to her. "It's that Groove fellow," the blacksmith said, inspecting a sword. "Apparently he's been daring people to dive off Shadowback Point. LaFlat tried to have a word with him, but he insists it's all in good fun. He doesn't seem to be taking the danger seriously, my prince." "Shadowback Point. That's right where the Lionel is." Link huffed, unhooked the slate from his belt, and typed, "Is he insane?" "That's what I've been saying," LaFlat cried. She looked furious. "Oh, I could rip his tail right off. And what's worse is that some of the younger Zora have accepted his dare. They wouldn't listen to me either. I tried telling them how terrifying Lionels are, but they didn't seem to believe me." She sighed and held up the book she was carrying, a book of monsters. "I was hoping to find an illustration of a Lionel, to show them how fearsome they really are, but no luck so far." "Not a surprise," the blacksmith hummed. "Who wants to get close enough to draw a Lionel in detail?" "I have a picture," Link typed. As usual, when he made his own sentences, Simma's voice sounded a little stilted, not quite natural, but otherwise it was fine. "You do?" LaFlette asked, eyes brightening. Link opened the album, showed her, and she squealed loudly. She clapped her hands over her mouth, dropping the book. Sidon caught it before it could hit the ground. The poor woman seemed more embarrassed than ever. The blacksmith gave an amused huff. He stood, his knees cracking, and let out a low whistle when he saw the picture. "I didn't know you were an artist, Your Grace," he said. "I'm not. There is a rune on the slate that creates instant images." "Fascinating," LaFlat squeaked, her voice muffled by her hands. "May I draw a copy? I promise not to take long." Link agreed. LaFlat went to fetch some paper and ink. Sidon property introduced Link to the blacksmith, Dento. "I made that light-scale trident to celebrate Princess Mipha's birth," he said, his voice warm with nostalgia. "It will be in good hands with you, Your Highness. Should you need any weapons or shields for your journey, do not hesitate to call on me." LaFlat came running back, mumbling under her breath about scaring Groove and those other idiots straight. Clearly, she was more fiery than she first appeared. She sat at the empty table next to Dento, and Link set the slate next to her, the picture of the Lionel on the screen. Biting her lip in concentration, LaFlat began to draw, carefully copying the image. "It's amazing work," Sidon said. "I didn't know the slate could do that." "It's really useful," Link signed. Dento hummed thoughtfully. "And it remains untainted by Ganon," he said. "Interesting." "Maybe he didn't know about it," Link suggested. "Besides, I don't see how it would work even if he did possess it," Sidon said, tapping his chin. "Unlike the Guardians and Divine Beasts, it can't move." "Well, it has bombs." Sidon winced. Okay, that would not be ideal. But still, it needs someone to operate it. Even if he knew about it, I would guess he didn't think anything of it. While the flat drew, Dento showed Link and Sidon some of the weapons he'd recently finished, and some new helms for the Royal Guard he'd started on. There was a separate room at the back of his workshop where he melted the materials down and did all the heavy work, easily the hottest room in the entire domain. When Dento saw Link closely looking at the materials and tools, he said, "You are welcome to come by for a demonstration any time, Highness." Link eagerly nodded, and Dento smiled. He had heavy bags under his eyes and a missing front tooth. His smile was sharp, but surprisingly kind. Once LaFlat was done with her drawing, Link opened the compendium for her, and she copied down the notes on Lionel's that the compendium had automatically filled in. Armed with her frankly spooky drawing and intimidating facts on Lionel's, she marched out in search of that moronic bottom feeder, Groove, and his foolish friends, as LaFlat described them. "I don't think I've ever seen her so angry," Sidon said. "I can't say I blame the girl," Dento scoffed. "Some fool child will either get skewered by that Lionel or crack their heads open trying to dive up there. Someone needs to scare them straight." Link couldn't argue with that. He could see a trio of kids playing by Mipha's statue, and his too, he supposed. How odd. And he shuddered at the idea of any of them overhearing the dare and trying it for themselves. Bad enough for adults to try it, but kids? Highly a no. The drawing must have done its job. When the tour continued, Link and Sidon spotted a quartet of adult Zora who all looked petrified. Groove looked chastened, though he kept glancing over the square's railing into the water below with a longing sigh. What a weird guy, Link thought, and followed Sidon to the upper levels of the domain. The third day, Link followed Sidon up into the hills. They even managed to find 5 Koroks, much to Sidon's amusement and delight. 2 hid under rocks, 1 needed a spiral of stones to be completed, another ran in a circle through a patch of flowers, disguised as a ball of sparkles and leaves. The 5th was hidden as a huge yellow flower, as big as Link's entire forearm. It stuck out like a sore thumb among all the pinks and purples of the domain's native flowers. When Link first touched it, the flower disappeared in a puff of flower petals and reappeared further down the path. With a delighted gasp, Sidon ran after it. He laughed outright when the flower disappeared and reappeared on a rock. "Link!" he cried. "Your little forest friends are most amusing." Finally, the yellow flower turned white and the Korok appeared, laughing. "You found me!" they cried. "Hi, Mr. Hero. Who's your friend?" "This is Sidon," Link said. "He's my brother." "Hi, Mr. Hero's brother." "Hello, little one," Sidon said warmly. The Korok tossed them a Korok seed, reminding Link to return it to Hestu when he next saw him. "What are these Korok seeds made of, anyway?" Sidon asked as they continued to explore. "I don't know," Link admitted. "Hestu wouldn't tell me, but he seemed pretty embarrassed." Whatever they were made from, maybe it was best that Link didn't know. Sidon still seemed curious, but accepted the lack of answer. "I will simply have to ask Hestu myself," Sidon said. "I'm sure I will meet him eventually." Sidon would get a kick out of Hestu's dances. Link was sure of it. He'd probably even join in. Link would be sure to get plenty of pictures. On the 4th day, Dorothan announced that preparations were complete and that they'd be holding a domain-wide celebration that evening. A celebration for Mipha, for the fact that her soul was free. A celebration that Varuta was free and their ally once more. A celebration for Link's return. Link thought of everyone watching him and felt sick. His throat clamped up, his chest tightened, and his walk bordered on a run as he left the palace and went down into the main square. He stood before the statue of him and Mipha, staring at her face. Her expression was serene, even in stone. Her gaze was kind. She wore the bracelet Link had given her, and her sash had been so expertly carved that it appeared soft, even from up close. The folds of the fabric were carved so delicately that Link found it hard to believe the whole thing was stone, not a genuine article of clothing. He tried not to look at himself. It felt odd. It made his skin itch. His eyes kept glancing back to the Master Sword, though, held in his stone's counterpart's hands. The Master Sword. Phi. Where was she? So not only did I lose my memories, I managed to lose the sword created by Hylia herself, Link thought glumly. Some hero. Your Grace, Muzu's voice snapped him back to reality. Link bit back a yelp and met Muzu's concerned gaze. Apologies, Muzu said. I didn't mean to startle you. He came forward and stood next to Link, gazing up at Mipha's statue. There was grief in his eyes. In seconds, he looked ready to weep. You didn't like me, did you? Link asked. He didn't know it until he said it, but suddenly the knowledge was there in his mind. Muzu gave an embarrassed cough. No, not at first. I must admit, I disliked Hylians. Strongly disliked them. Your lives are so short, yet we were expected to follow House Hyrule's lead in times of war. It seemed ridiculous. I was alive when Zelda's great-grandmother was crowned. I couldn't understand why we had an alliance with a race who rarely possessed magic of their own, who lived such short lives, and yet they could tell us what was best. I admit I could not understand why the goddesses would seem to favor your race so much. He sighed, shaking his head. Foolishness, stubbornness. It was an old-fashioned way of thinking, even when I was young. Yet my parents always impressed on me that Hylians were beneath us. They were nothing but trouble, and I believed them. So what changed? Link asked. Mipha loved you, Muzu said, and I loved Mipha with all my heart. She didn't tell me about you until she gave you the engagement armor. She was, and still is, most precious to me. To realize I had given her cause to distrust me. No, more than that. To fear my reaction, it made me realize I was clinging to old-fashioned beliefs. You were to be her husband, like it or not. I would have to at least mind my manners. I didn't want to hurt her any further. I was still wary, mind you. I didn't think anyone was good enough for our princess, but you made her happy, incredibly happy. Anyone could see it. Muzu's voice trailed away, shaking slightly. He kept his gaze on the statue. I hope I did, Link said. His voice came out more hoarse than he intended. I hope she was happy. There was a pause. Then Muzu rested his hand, clawed and somewhat withered, on Link's shoulder. She adored you, he said, and you adored her in turn. I had never seen her so happy before. You made her light up just by walking into the room. At first, I cared about you for her sake, and only that. But eventually, you won me over. I doubt you even meant to, but you did. You were forever helping our people with the smallest tasks, even nonsensical ones. You let the children drag you into their games. You helped train our guards. You were a good prince, Your Highness. I do not want you to doubt that. Muzu's voice was firmer now. His grip on Link's shoulders tightened. When Link looked at him, he could see nothing but certainty in Muzu's eyes. You still love her, Muzu said. It wasn't a question. I do, Link said. I expect you to keep yourself safe, Muzu said, for Princess Mipha's sake, and your own. He released Link and nodded, seemingly to himself, as if in approval of something. I am glad to have you back, Prince Link. Link managed a small smile. Glad to be back, he said, because that much was true. He was scared, he was overwhelmed, he was bone-deep tired. He didn't feel worthy of all these smiles and praises. But Zora's domain still felt safe and familiar, and Link was glad to be here, despite everything. Link held on tightly to his locket and let Muzu escort him back to the palace. According to Muzu, the party would be starting soon, and I understand Hylians take longer to get ready for events like these. I must say, those clothes look awfully tricky. He sounded so earnest that Link had to bite his lip to keep from laughing. Instead, Link nodded and hoped he looked as serious as Muzu did. No need to burst Muzu's bubble, after all. Maybe it was because he was still amused by Muzu's remarks about clothes, but as Link stood before his wardrobe, something nagged at him. Something about a party and Mipha? No, something about Zelda. Zelda and Mipha. Zelda had an idea about something. Link couldn't remember. It was there, on the tip of his tongue, begging for attention, but he couldn't put the pieces together. It would come to him. If it didn't, there was surely someone he could ask, right? Almost everyone in the domain was around 100 years old. They'd know. Except that Link doubted parties were rare among royalty. So how was he supposed to narrow it down? Back to square one, he thought, with a huff, and opened the wardrobe. There were traveling clothes inside, sleepwear neatly folded away on shelves, more clothing in drawers. Some of it was formal, some of it was casual, and yes, there were the jewelry boxes that Finley was so taken with. Link looked at the staggering amount of clothes and tilted his head, smiling to himself. Okay, so he liked fashion. That hadn't changed. Link was already dressed when two young servants shyly knocked on the door and said they were there to help him get ready. Two Zora boys, one silver and one soft yellow. Oh, Link said. He could feel his face flushing. How had he dealt with this before? He couldn't remember. Was there a polite way to say he absolutely did not want anyone helping him into his clothes? It was one thing for Coda to help him find something or bully him into getting out of bed, but he shuddered at the idea of someone actually putting their hands on him or, highly forbid, trying to help him bathe and dress. "Oh, you're dressed," the silver one said. "Apologies. We must be so late, Highness." Link shook his head. "You're not," he said, too quietly. They could hardly be late when Link hadn't even expected them. The three of them looked at each other awkwardly. Link wanted the floor to open up and swallow him. The silence was dreadful. Link wondered about grabbing the Sheikah slate and teleporting away. "I'm Alto, Prince Link," the Silver Zora said, bowing. Did he feel awkward too, or had he just taken pity on Prince Link and his blatant confusion? "And I am Vesper," the Yellow Zora said, bowing even deeper. "Hello," Link said. "Please leave," he thought desperately. "Well, since you're already prepared, we will take our leave," Alto said. "But please send for us if you need anything, Your Grace." "I will," Link lied. The two boys bowed again as they left. They even bowed once more before Link shut the door. That was fucking dreadful, Link thought, blushing to the tips of his ears. Goddesses, he hoped Captain Baz and Riven wouldn't behave like this, or Link would leave them behind. Dorfan's orders be damned. Sighing, he went to the mirror. His cheeks were bright pink, blast it all. He hoped that would die down quickly. Even the tips of his ears were pink. Delightful. Still, he liked the clothes he'd chosen. A silky, deep purple tunic with sheer sleeves, lined with black and white wave designs at the hem. The neckline was a little low, something showing more of the burn scar on his collarbone and neck than the clothes Link had worn so far. The burns on his arms were visible, but even though the sleeves were sheer, the color was so dark that it didn't draw attention to them. The boots were simple, black and sturdy. The pants felt nearly as silky as the tunic, dyed a shining white. A pair of amethyst stud earrings shone in his ears. A silver pin, shaped like a crescent moon, held his ponytail in place. The whole effect was pretty, but Link felt comfortable, and he supposed that should be his main priority. He kept the locket on, of course. He couldn't imagine ever taking it off. There was another knock at the door, and Link bit back the urge to shout, "Fuck off." Blessedly, it was Sidon, cheerfully barging his way in seconds after knocking. "I just remembered. You don't remember where the ballroom is," he said, clapping his hands together. "So I'll walk with you." He seemed flustered. Link smirked. "Dorfan had to remind you, didn't he?" he guessed. "No," Sidon said, avoiding eye contact like his life depended on it. "He did." "Keep smirking at me, and I'll let the council whisk you away after all," Sidon threatened. "I don't smirk," Link said, still blatantly smirking. "I hate you," Sidon huffed, puffing out his cheeks. He linked his arm with Link's and ushered him out of the room. "I hate you so very much." "No, you don't." "No, I don't," Sidon agreed. Link's grin widened, and Sidon was soon snickering. "So, how bad is it?" Link asked as they walked. "If you still hate crowds as much as I remember," Sidon sighed, "well, I promise not to leave your side." Link would admit that was reassuring, but the idea of a crowded ballroom staring at him still made him feel sick. Despite his trepidation, he was taken aback by the ballroom, looking around with awe as Laflat announced his and Sidon's entrance. The ballroom was massive, no surprises there. Chandeliers of sea glass hung from the ceiling. Marble tables shot through with swirling lines of luminous stone lined the room. The chairs and benches were all intricately carved with waves, stars, and moons. Flowers twined around the columns, and plates and cutlery were all silver. The glass doors to the balcony were flung open, and Link could hear more music outside, happy shouts from children, dozens upon dozens of voices overlapping. At the end of the room was a massive tiered dais, much like the throne room. There was a waterfall behind it and another throne for Dorephan. Link doubted there was another seat in the world that could support Dorephan's great size. Below the king was another table and set of chairs. Muzu already sat there. Below that was another table, and many Zora had already taken their seats there. They were draped in glittering jewelry and equally delicate sashes. Nobles, from the looks of them. They looked up, eyes sharp and eager, as Sidon and Link were announced. Not just nobles, Link realized. It was Dorephan's council. Towards the left of the room, a band played. Most of the floor was empty space. A dance floor, no doubt. Not many people were dancing yet, but then again, the room wasn't nearly full yet. To Sidon's credit, he hurried Link up the steps past the council's table, and the two of them paused to bow before Dorephan. "My boys," Dorephan said warmly, "I hope you will enjoy yourselves tonight. You've more than earned it." Link glanced over his shoulder. At least half of the council hastened to sit forward facing again. Blatantly caught trying to listen in. Link gestured for Dorephan to lean down. The king leaned down as far as he could, and Link stood on the tips of his toes to whisper. "So, did you have to remind Sidon I don't know my way around yet?" Dorephan burst out laughing. "I did," he said, past his laughter. Sidon gave an embarrassed groan and all but shoved Link to his seat, right between Sidon and Muzu. "I'm technically older than you," Sidon said. "Should it not be my job to embarrass you now, as the eldest?" "You make it too easy, Prince Sidon," a man said. Link turned to see Captain Baz standing behind Sidon, grinning. Sidon made a deeply amusing hissing noise as he took his seat. Captain Baz bowed, one hand on his heart. "Hello," Link said cautiously. Captain Baz. They'd been friends once. Baz was expected to come with Link when he had to leave again. Link still felt it was entirely unnecessary, but it would make Dorephan feel better, so what choice did he really have? He wondered how Impa would react, and had a feeling she'd agree with Dorephan. Baz smiled at him and stepped away towards the edge of the dais, back to his post. Link spotted Riven entering the room with his daughter. As the room began to fill, Sidon pointed people out. "There's Gaddison. You were friends too." Coda mentioned her. "Oh, speaking of Coda, there she is with Caden. I do hope this won't be too much for Finley. Ah, there's Baz's father, Segin, and Riven's father, Trello. They were both brilliant warriors in their day. Segin was known as the Demon Sergeant. He trained Mifa and I in combat." Many guests came forward to bow to Dorephan, Sidon, and even to Link before they took their seats. Dento introduced Link to his granddaughter, Merit. Apparently, Merit Mart was named after her. It had been her idea. "I will be working on new helms and chest plates for the guards tomorrow afternoon," Dento told Link. "If you have time, I'd be honored to have you stop by." Link happily nodded. "Don't you ever take a day off, old friend," Muzu said. "Hypocrite," Denton scoffed, but he was grinning. "You're both as bad as each other," Dorephan said fondly. "You both desperately need a holiday." Somehow, Link just couldn't imagine that happening. When the room was full, Dorephan clapped for attention. The band's music stopped, all conversation died, and all eyes were on the king. Link kept his head down, eyes on the table, trying to avoid all those gazes. "Friends, be welcome," Dorephan said. His voice had such an air of authority, carrying all around the room. He barely even needed to raise it. "This is a most joyous occasion for our beloved domain. Our dear Princess Mifa's spirit has been freed from Ganon's grasp. Even now, she has taken aim at Hyrule Castle, still dedicated to protecting her people and all this land of Hyrule. There was applause and cheers of Mipha's name. Dorephan waited for it to die down before continuing. Words cannot express my pride. Pride I know is shared among you all. And of course, there is one more miracle to celebrate. After 100 years of waiting, our Prince Link has returned home. The applause and cheers began again. Link clasped his hands tightly on his lap as everyone cheered his name this time. He felt the ridiculous urge to hide under the table. How had he ever lasted as a champion and prince before? Surely people had stared 100 years ago. How had he dealt with it? Had it always made him so anxious? He wanted to ask them all to stop looking at him. Under the table, Sidon took his hand. "It's okay," he said quietly. "You're okay." Dorephan continued, explaining the entertainment taking place throughout the entire domain. More bands outside, a troupe of Zora dancers who used water magic in their routines would be performing after dinner. Various bands would play all night. There was even a group of magicians in the main square, and fireworks were planned for midnight. Now, Dorephan spread his arms wide. Let the celebrations begin. It didn't take long for people to start trying to talk to Link. One member of the council, an elderly dark green man, approached Link's chair as soon as the appetizers were finished. Raw snails for everyone else, cooked snails for Link, and bowed, holding out his hand. Baffled, Link glanced at Sidon. Sidon lightly jerked his head towards the man's hand, and Link took it, albeit reluctantly. The councilman held Link's hand like it was something fragile, lightly pressing it to his forehead. "Your Grace," he said lowly, "it is an honor to gaze upon you once again." He stood, releasing Link's hand. "I am Lord Neptune, a member of Dorephan's council." Link didn't even try to talk. He knew there was no chance his voice would cooperate right now. Instead, he picked up the slate and Simmons' voice smoothly said, "It's nice to meet you." A basic introduction. Lord Neptune's gaze narrowed on the Sheikah slate. "Ah," he said. "That belonged to Princess Zelda, did it not?" Link nodded. "With all due respect, Your Grace, you would be better off abandoning such technology." Link stiffened. His grip on the slate tightened. "No," Simmons' voice said. Link jabbed the screen too harshly. "Lord Neptune," Sidon said frostily, "the slate helps my brother communicate, and what's more, was vital in freeing Ruta and my sister. You overstep." Neptune hesitated. He looked at the slate with obvious distaste. Dorephan cleared his throat, and Neptune turned to him, his expression turning wary. "My lord," Dorephan said, "did you perhaps have anything else to say?" "Only that we are relieved to have you home, Prince Link," Neptune said, bowing again. "I'm sure our beloved Princess Mipha will rest in peace knowing you are safe. It is a balm to all our souls to have you return to us safely." His eyes flickered to the slate again, narrowing. "And we pray you will not be in a hurry to leave." Link tapped the screen. "Thank you," Simmons' voice said. Dorephan was looking at Neptune with narrowed eyes, plainly impatient. Neptune returned to his seat with one more bow. Muzu had one fist pressed to his forehead, eyes shut, as if embarrassed to listen to Neptune. Link twisted around in his seat to sign. "What was that all about?" to Dorephan. Dorephan sighed. "Let's say many of the council fear Mipha and the goddess's wrath should we let you leave and face Ganon," he signed. "That's stupid," Link signed bluntly, and he could feel how deadpan his expression had turned. "Mipha wouldn't want me to hide, and I think the goddesses would be angrier if I ignored their plans." "Precisely," Dorephan signed. On one hand, it was kind of them to worry. Probably. On the other hand, Link felt like they were trying to baby him, and he felt a sudden stab of anger. He wasn't helpless. He wasn't. Hadn't he proven that yet? "Try to ignore them," Sidon signed. His sign wasn't quite as fluid as Dorephan's. "That's the plan," Link answered. He kept the slate right next to his plate, one hand drifting back to it throughout the courses that followed. More council members approached as the evening passed, each of them looking at the slate like it was a personal offense, each of them hinting at Link staying put. It was maddening. When Torafu approached, Link almost didn't recognize her without her armor. She wore 2 pearl necklaces and a simple silver circlet. "Your Highness," she said, holding out her hand, "may I have this dance?" Link was quite sure he didn't know how to dance, but he eagerly jumped out of his seat and stepped away from the latest council member, taking Torfu's hand. "You looked like you needed rescuing," she whispered as they went to the dance floor. "I did," Link sighed. "Badly." He looked uncertainly at the dancing couples and groups. "I don't think I remember how to dance." "Then just follow my lead," Torfu said. Link could do that much. It actually turned out to be a lot of fun. For a while, he could forget about how everyone was staring. He burst out laughing when, as the next song began, Sidon appeared behind him and lifted him right up, spinning rapidly in a circle. Torfu snorted loudly and tried to muffle it with her hands. "Oh, enough with those old geezers," Sidon said happily. "Let's have some fun." As midnight approached, everyone gathered in the main square, the staircase leading from the square to the second floor of the domain, and crowded around the outside of the palace. A circle of guards stood around Dorfan, Sidon, and Link, thankfully keeping everyone else at bay. The fireworks began right as midnight hit, sending out waves of pink, gold, purple, white, and green sparkles. The noise was deafening. Children gasped and cheered. Everyone, it seemed, was transfixed. It was beautiful. Link looked at Ruta, standing at her post in the distance, and hoped Mipha had a good view. As the fireworks continued, Link let his thoughts wash away, his mind quiet. He looked at the sky and could ignore the huge crowd surrounding him on all sides. He focused on Dorfan and Sidon, and the bright colors exploding across the night sky. When the fireworks finally died down, Link nudged Dorfan to get his attention. Dorfan glanced down at him with a questioning smile. Link sheepishly signed. "Can I go to bed?" Dorfan chuckled. "Of course you can." He called for Captain Baz and quietly ordered him to make sure no one bothered Link on his way back to his room. After all the noise and the noise of the ballroom, the palace felt eerily quiet now. Everyone was outside. Link didn't glimpse a single person. "Link," Captain Baz sounded hesitant, almost shy. "I was thinking perhaps you, Riven, and I could meet up tomorrow to discuss your plans. Where to go next, what will be needed, and so forth." "Okay," Link agreed. "But I'm meeting Dento in the afternoon. Can I come find you after that?" "Sounds like a plan," Baz said, less shyly. He walked less stiffly and his smile widened. "I hope you enjoyed yourself tonight." "The council is nosy," Link signed, rolling his eyes. Baz chuckled, nodding in agreement. "Unfortunately, that never changes," he said. "I imagine they kept hinting at you staying." "Yes." Baz sighed. "I can't do anything to stop them," he said, "but I'll let King Dorfan know. He's already lost his temper with them about this. Maybe if he finally snaps, they'll keep their stupid mouths shut." He glanced at Link, almost anxiously, and said, "Please don't tell them I said that." Link snorted, a knot of anxiety loosening in his chest. "I won't say a word," he promised. "Don't sign it either," Baz said, and Link couldn't hold his laughter back. Baz was all right. Maybe working with him wouldn't be so bad after all. Thanks so much to anybody who listens to this. I've left a link in the description for the original fic over on AO3, as always. Please leave kudos and comments for the author over there if you liked this. I'll be back with chapter 18 whenever I get that finished.